All right, hello, everyone. I messed that one up already. Hello, everyone. Welcome to an episode of Dear Dr. Fantasy. And for my very special guest today, I have Shay from the channel Zachary Shaye. It is really, really fantastic to see you today, Shay. And welcome to Dear Dr. Fantasy.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate being here. It is an absolute honor to be sitting across from you right now.
Well, the honor is mine. The honor is mine, my friend. And you do go by Shay. That is what you've written for your name there.
Mhm.
And I've noticed that, like me, sometimes people. I know that no one means ill by it or anything like that, but people sometimes refer to you as Zachary or Zach or
Mhm.
that kind of thing. Do you care what people call you, or do you really prefer Shay, or what's the deal with that?
So I had I went by Zach for a good few years, and then I had this family that kind of took me in high school
Uh-huh.
during my adolescence, and they had another son named Zach. So just for
Okay.
simplicity's sake, I became Shay. That's my middle name, so it was just easier than Zach, huh? Both of us, huh? And they're like, no, 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 not you, you. And it just became easier within the household.
Okay, cool. So you do you
But
care though? You prefer to
yeah,
go?
I don't. I'm so used to Shay because that's what I was called, but
Yeah.
so that's what I present as. But a lot of people, especially with the channel being Zachary Shay, they just see my first name and they go with that, and I don't correct it. I mean, a lot of my closest friends on BookTube still call me Zach. It's just whichever people prefer, but I present Shay. That's the name I go by.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would refer to you as Shay. I think I called you Zachary because I saw, like you said, I saw the channel name, and the
Right.
time I replied to you as Zachary. But then I noticed you called yourself Shay, so I was like, oh, I guess that it's going to be Shay then. Yeah. So. But yeah, I have that too. Sometimes, like people will sometimes just fall into calling me Phil, and I do not like to be called Phil. Which is people who are
Dr.
close to
Phil.
me. People who are close to me do not call me Phil. They call me Philip. But I know that people are just trying to be friendly when they say Phil, so I feel bad just sort of saying, I really don't like that.
Yeah,
And then there are people who call me Dr. Chase around here. John from Talking Story, I'm looking at you.
I've done that.
Which is fine. Again, I could answer to that, but on YouTube, I guess I've introduced myself as Philip, so I'm
Right.
happy to be called that on YouTube.
Yes,
But
sir. I
anyway,
think just
yeah.
like a southern hospitality respect thing, it's like your doctor or mister until it's
Hmm.
been that level of
Yeah.
there's been that discussion. So
Yeah, well, John and I are good friends, though, so he still calls me Dr. Chase, which is, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to correct him, but that's okay. That's why we love John. So,
yes.
anyway, we are here to talk about you today and whatever else comes up, all things fantasy. And you do a lot there on your channel. I've noticed lately that you're doing some audiobook narration, which is really exciting. Can you tell us how that's going? Without as much as you can tell us. I know you haven't been able to say everything about the project, but how are you enjoying this? Is it your first time doing it, or have you done audiobooks before?
This is definitely the first time. It's
Okay.
I believe I can say because it's done. I haven't said it on my channel, but uh,
Oh. So we're this is
for
breaking news, or can or are we breaking a big story here?
I mean, I guess I'm probably gonna make a video on it soon, but it's
And
it's
maybe you
for
want to keep it under wraps until the revelation. I think it's going to be a very exciting announcement, actually. So
okay, maybe I'll keep it under wraps.
yeah.
But it's one of my favorite authors. Here's a hint. I reviewed this author's book on my channel and they reached out to me and were like, "Hey, I want you to do an audiobook thing of this thing because in my book reviews I'll do like voiceovers from the book." And that wasn't really like in my head, I didn't really think I could narrate. This is just more to show the viewers like this is what the prose style is like. This is what you can come to expect from these books. But the
Right.
author, and I almost didn't even keep that in the book review I put out. And the author heard that, liked it, and was like, "Would you like to do an audio narration?" So
Oh, huh. That is the coolest thing ever.
yeah, it completely took me aback. I was so surprised.
But you're done narrating. It's
Correct.
recorded.
Right.
And are you having like an engineer tweak it or anything like that? Is there a process you're going through now, or is it? Can you talk about that?
So I recorded it on this one sort of simplistic DAW called Reaper. I
Okay.
recorded all my audio tracks. I mixed it to the best of my ability. I'm still very much a noob at that.
Hmm.
But so I
Quite
would
a
save
process, I
chapters.
gather. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very difficult. It was more difficult than I probably, whenever you have an author you admire ask you to do something like that, the immediate answer is yes. And then once I started working on it, I'm like, oh, this is a lot more intricate than I originally thought. Um,
Huh.
but I recorded chapter by chapter, sent it to the author. Um, they had many notes on, diction, pronunciation, and then I had to go back, change it up, the space between sentences and page breaks and stuff and how to navigate that. So,
Yeah, if it's fantasy, there's got to be weird names that are every like it's gonna have 10 different possible pronunciations, right? So
right.
was that part of the learning process was just figuring out, oh, that's how this name is pronounced in this world? Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And then there were some like regular English words like heifer. I said
Uh,
heifer. I said
oh yeah,
heifer.
heifer. You did not grow up on a farm then, did you?
Yeah, no, I did not. Yeah, no, there were a few, and even my partner Lainey, she was like, "What? How did you not know what a heifer was?" I'm like, "I don't want to hear it. I already heard it from the author. I don't. I get that it wasn't heifer."
If the author is who I think it is, I am sure you heard it from the author.
Yeah,
I can imagine that conversation.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
They were very kind with the feedback, but there were a few word pronunciations, especially early on, where I was like, but then I learned if I wasn't absolutely positive to like look it up on like Oxford. They
Yeah.
have like their little pronunciation tools and stuff, so that helped a ton.
Cool. So this has been a learning experience for you then.
Oh, big time, big time.
And do you think you'd like to do more audiobook narration as a result of this?
I think for this specific author, if they asked me to do more, I would, but I'm very hesitant to accept more in the future because I think, well, I mean, I'm going into nursing school.
Uh-huh. It's a
I've got the
lot of
channel
time. It's very time consuming. Yeah.
extremely like 4 hours of finished audio took countless, like beyond a dozen hours, beyond a dozen. Like it took countless hours to get what's like 4 hours essentially of narration. So,
Yeah. So it's a novella then, I guess, is probably what we're
yeah.
looking at here. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trickling little bits of information out of here. But we're saving the big reveal for the video on your channel, which people will check out, I hope. So cool. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
sir.
And you have been writing your own book and doing on your channel a little people can hear you narrating a little bit of that too, right?
Yes, yes.
Can
Um,
we talk about that for a bit, if you don't mind?
oh, sure. So I think from like age 14 to like 20, I was like workshopping different ideas, and I kind of had like this obsessive idea of this crazy big fantasy epic. And then I think like a year ago, I was like, you know what? I could never do that and not have it like I just don't think I have any sort of experience to do something like that. So I just started writing the book that I did write, which is Requiem, as like a practice book. Like just to and the original premise was like Tarantino's Hateful Eight. You know how they're stuck in this tavern
Hmm.
and there's a killer in the tavern, but they don't really know what's going on. It was like that, but infused with like Lovecraftian horror and some fantasy elements. And it
Wow.
grew beyond that. Like the story got a lot bigger than that. But originally it was just like, hey, I don't have any experience if I wanted to write the big epic. So let me just get a practice book in.
I think it's
And
very smart of you. Very smart, actually.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah. That sounds like a really great premise for a book too. That's going to be a fun one, I think. So, what genre would you describe it as?
I think there's some steampunk,
Okay.
and there's some Lovecraftian horror,
Cosmic
but
horror.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And
All
there's
right.
one thing I took a lot of inspiration from is Malazan and how shows the different gods interacting with each other. I really love how a lot of the ascendants are just like as flawed as humans, if not more so. You can kind of see the strain some of the holds and the Warrens have on them, and a
Yeah.
lot of them they're not very sane. Like they're it kind of reminds me of sections in the Iliad where you would see the gods squabbling, and it feels like you're watching a sitcom of these like different deities.
Yep.
So I have like throughout the book, there's a play going on with the different gods, and it's told in like a play format, and you see the
Hmm.
gods conversing. Um, Kin Liu does this also. He has like the gods
Yep.
with
And the
their little
Dandelion
discussions.
Dynasty. Yeah. Yeah.
I have complicated opinions on Dandelion Dynasty. I saw your review on it, and I agreed with a lot of your points actually on
Really?
Wall of
Okay.
Storms.
Yeah, I felt bad about not loving the Dandelion Dynasty. I really wanted to love it, but
Mhm.
there are aspects of that particular story that Ken Liu may do different things with his other stories that wouldn't bother me this way. But for me, it was just so heavy on the engineering and the emphasis on the different contraptions and things,
The
which
flamethrower poop gun I remember
the
in your
poop
video.
flamethrower and all that, and it's cool. And especially if you love that sort of thing, if you love having those contraptions described in intricate detail and how they work and how the character thought them up. And I heard later on that Ken Liu actually created all these gadgets to make sure this is something that could actually work, which doesn't surprise me at all because it felt like he was telling us every step of how these things were made.
Mhm.
And for me, that's in a certain context, I would be interested in that, but not when it's interrupting the story
Mid battle.
mid-battle or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe I would have been fine if it had happened a couple times, but it was happening again and again and again, and particularly in Wall of Storms, the second book.
Mhm.
But there are people who love that sort of thing,
Oh
that's
yeah.
storytelling, and I'm glad. I'm glad because I do see the talent. I appreciated what Ken Liu was attempting in that, and there were aspects of it that I really did enjoy and appreciated. But it just got really to the point where I was almost ready to just put the book down, and I could not take another engineering side journey.
Yeah.
So,
It was pretty ubiquitous with the series. Like book three kind of dialed back on that a little bit, but then in book
uh,
four it was back full force with the mid battle. So, but I
okay.
do like what he did with the gods. It was very
Yes.
reminiscent of Malazan for me.
Absolutely, or he probably, yeah. I mean, I'm familiar with Greek mythology and Norse mythology and Hindu mythology, and I'm sure from what I've read of East Asian mythology, there's similar elements of the old gods being interfering, and our flaws are writ large, essentially, in these gods. They're like you said, they're flawed like we are, but in a big way, right? And their actions have vast consequences as a result. So I think it's a really cool thing that Erickson has done in replicating that. And it sounds like that's something that you took on in your story. Is that right? This sort of element of the gods being kind of with their strings and playing around with us mere mortals and that kind of thing.
That is something I've tried to play with. We'll see
Uh,
how it works out, but that there is intention there to kind of because that's one of my favorite elements of Malazan.
uh-huh.
I would just love seeing, especially because in Gardens of the Moon you don't get that as much, and as you get deeper into the series, you see the gods more and more, and I just really like that element of it.
Oh, it's huge. And you could argue is responsible for one of the what evolves to be one of the central aspects of the overarching story that it's difficult to see until you get to the crippled god, but there is something that weaves it all together, and that is something you really see. And that element that you're talking about, the gods and their machinations, turns out to be pretty central to that aspect of it. So yeah.
Mhm.
Um, which I can't. I'm dancing around major spoilers here, so yeah, dangerous
Yeah,
territory.
same here.
Yeah, but yeah, obviously you are a Malazan fan, like
Mhm.
myself, which is basically speaks very well of your taste.
You as well, you as well. A man of taste.
But you didn't start out as a Malazan fan, probably. I didn't. I didn't read it until I was in my late 40s,
Mhm.
so or probably mid 40s the first time around anyway. But I want to know more about your literary journey, as it were. So Shay, going on the theory that you are what you read, what
Mhm.
are some of the important formative stories of your life that you would use to explain who the person you are today? What tell us about some of the big ones for you, going back as far as you like up to the present.
Awesome, awesome. I think I have some top tier favorites. I have like six or seven favorite series, but they all inhabit different parts of like my development. I think it started with, and you'll probably hear this from most like Gen Z millennial fantasy fans. It was from my sister really loved Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, and
Okay.
that was the thing I would always, she would have the VHS in her room, blow it off, put it in the VHS player, and I would always be like, "Are we watching Fellowship?" Like always tagging along to watch it with her, and that was a big thing for me and my sister, was watching the Lord of the Rings films all the way through.
Good
And then
sister. I like her already. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, she was the one to put that love of Tolkien in there from the very beginning.
Uh-huh.
And then now it's come back around. I'm pressuring her to read Silmarillion, but
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Yeah. Look what she
um,
unleashed. Yeah.
yes, I think the Andy Serkis audiobooks have helped with convincing her to, because I think she read Fellowship, but she never gone on with the rest of the books.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
she was just a pure Peter Jackson enthusiast. So the Andy
Sure.
Serkis audiobooks have been my way to be like, how about we try again?
Uh-huh.
Um,
Good. Yeah. I mean, I thought he did a fantastic job. I listened to his narration of the all three books in The Lord of the Rings, and
mhm.
I thought he was just brilliant. Great narrator. Yeah.
Oh, oh, it was amazing. The way he did the King of Rohan, just a lot of the oh my gosh, the scene where he narrated Saruman was brilliant,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it hit on a lot that wasn't in the films, and I admired how different it was
Yeah.
than Christopher Lee's performance. Um, it brought a lot because Saruman he's a very different character, I feel, between the adaptation and the original novels.
Interesting. Yeah. In some cases, I felt that Andy Serkis was channeling the actor from the Peter Jackson film, like Gandalf, for example.
Mhm.
That sounded like Ian McKellen to me. I mean,
Right.
it was just spot on. Or he even gave Pippin a little Scottish accent, right?
Oh, Pippin was
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
I
But there are other cases where, like Aragorn, he gave an entirely different voice to Aragorn. He was not trying to sound like Viggo Mortensen, and I
right.
liked his Aragorn actually. I liked his interpretation, slightly deeper voice.
Mhm.
That's how I imagined Aragorn sounding as a kid, and an adult reading those books. So I liked his Aragorn. And so yeah, he just does a great job overall of channeling those characters, though. Yeah.
Yep.
So let's hope that Big Sis gets into those audiobooks and can experience the story that way, because that is my personal favorite way of experiencing the Lord of the Rings. But I'm not going to knock the fans of the films. I think those are wonderful films, and I'm glad that they exist because they are beautiful in and of themselves.
Mhm.
I personally do prefer the books. I think that there's more beauty and more reverence and just more of the things that I love about The Lord of the Rings in the books. Whereas the films are a little more action oriented,
Yes.
but
I
they're still
like
beautiful. Yeah.
there's one thing from the film that is always canon in my mind is I really love what Peter Jackson did with Arwen's character. But
Uh-huh. Yeah, she barely exists in Lord of the Rings in the books.
right. And
Yeah.
then on the inverse, I thought Faramir got the real raw end of the deal in the movies.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, he really, and then the whole healing hands thing with him and Eowyn, like whenever I read the books after the film, so I was like, why would they cut this? But Peter Jackson had such a daunting task of adapting such a massive story,
Yeah.
so I'll forgive him this.
Yeah.
But that
And
was.
There are
kind of
certain
like,
characters he just made the right call on, like poor Tom Bombadil. We
ah,
yeah. Sorry, I love Tom, but there was no way he was ever going to make the films. So
yeah,
yeah,
I struggle to see how I could visualize Tom Bombadil like
yeah.
on in an actual film. Um, maybe an animation, but I feel like that would be a hard character to.
They put him in Rings of Power. I don't know if you're not probably not watching that, but Rings of Power. There's Tom Bombadil in Rings of Power.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yep. Yeah.
So I started with Lord of the Rings, and then I remember back to back to back I read this is about 17 through 19. I went through The Gentleman Bastards by Scott Lynch,
Oh,
which
great.
up till that point, Name of the Wind was like one of my favorite books. And when I read Liza Locke-Lamora, it just completely changed how I saw fantasy. I loved it. I loved it more than Name of the Wind. That was the first one to dethrone it. And then
Huh.
right after Gentleman Bastards, I read Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings.
Boom, you're hitting some winners there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was on a run, and then I read Steven Erickson's Malazan. So those were the three of like my like 17 through 19 age was Lynch, Hobb, Erickson, and it was just
Oh, somebody was giving you good advice. Or how did you find those?
well, there were missteps. Like I think right around I was reading Gentleman Bastards. I was also reading like The Wheel of Time, which didn't work for me.
Oh, okay.
Um,
That's
but
it. Lots of people love it. It's beloved by
right, right,
many. But it didn't work so well for you, I guess. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But those are just the three from those 2 or 3 years that really stood out. I mean, I was reading anything and everything that was talked about on BookTube and within the fantasy genre. Like
Yeah.
Daniel Green, I watched a lot of his videos when I was younger, and
Yeah, and he's a huge Wheel of Time fan. That was his,
right.
I think it's his favorite series of all time. But
He might have been how I found Malazan. That might be right. He might have tried Gardens of the Moon, and it's been a hot minute since I picked up Gardens of the Moon, but that might have been where it started.
interesting, huh? Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Well, no, they're all great series. I read The Wheel of Time and finished it and enjoyed it.
Mhm.
It sounds like you didn't finish
No, I finished it.
you did finish it. Okay, okay. So you,
Yes.
you got through all 14. And did you read the prequel?
New Spring, yeah, I read New
Yeah.
Spring.
Okay, so you couldn't have hated it that much if you got through 15 books,
I
right?
think it was just the power of the buzz around the series where
Okay.
everybody was like, get to the Sanderson books, and it really amps up. And I'm like, am I having fun now? Like, that's nothing against Wheel of Time fans. I love that it exists for the people that love it, but
Yeah.
it just wasn't one for me.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. I'm not going to debate you on it because a lot of it comes down to personal taste and all of that.
Mhm.
But yeah, for me, I'm with you entirely when it comes to Realm of the Elderlings and the Malazan series. We are both huge fans of those. That's top three. Those two are in my top three, and then Lord of the Rings. Yeah, so and yeah, they're just tremendous. And I do really love the Gentleman Bastard sequence as well. I don't
Mhm.
think it's probably ever going to be finished. Who knows?
Who
But
knows?
I love the three books we have. I heard talk
Same.
of a novella or something that
I
Scott
think
was
two
working.
novellas preceding Thorn of Emberlane, but I heard that about a year ago. So,
Yeah. Hmm. Okay. Well, we got three books anyway. That's a lot of fun. And
exactly.
a little bit of a cliffhanger on the third if we're never going to get a fourth, but that's fine. But yeah, I think the first one particularly works really well, if even as like a standalone,
Mhm.
could read it that way and just really enjoy it. Lies of Locke Lamora. But
Yeah, I think it's a pretty stellar standalone. But
yeah,
even book two kind of has a little bit of a cliffhangeriness to it.
I think once you get to book two, yeah, it feels more like a series. And certainly book three,
Right.
can't, I wouldn't leave it there. But yeah, it's been a little while since I read that, but I remember distinctly hoping for the next book in the series, and it's been a while. So, but and I don't have strong feelings on it. The whole debate about, oh, does the author owe the fans the next
Mhm.
book in the series? Because we've had this conversation around Patrick Rothfuss, you already mentioned. George R. R. Martin, of
Mhm.
course, with Song of Ice and Fire, and of course Scott Lynch. Those seem to be the big three that come up when we have this conversation about does the author owe something? And my personal feeling is no, the author doesn't owe you anything. You got what you got from that. And it's a shame if we don't get the end of the series, but life happens. There's people have breakdowns, people have other things in their lives. It's just not always easy to, it's not easy to write a book, right?
Mhm.
And unfortunately, not everybody is as efficient as, say, like Brandon Sanderson, who seems to have no trouble putting out books all the time.
Mhm.
But I feel like the people like that who struggle are probably their own hardest critics. That they're very likely perfectionists of a
Mhm.
sort, and that makes it difficult to finish things.
Well, whenever I was in boot camp or I just came out of boot camp when I saw that Scott Lynch posted on his Twitter a picture of the finished manuscript of book 4. And
Oh,
that's so I did 4 years in the military and then I've been out for about 3 years. So that's
yeah.
like 7 years since. So I would imagine that he probably threw his own manuscript out because it got to the point where he posted this online and for other people to view, and then the book never came along. So I would agree that he probably is his own harshest critic, and I doubt you get to the point where you're proud enough to share a work and then you share a glimpse to the world and then it doesn't materialize. I feel like that hurts no one more than it does Scott Lynch himself.
Oh, of course. And you can also be a victim of your own success. Like, I highly suspect that in the case of Patrick Rothfuss, he wrote that first book and it blew up. It was
Mhm.
big and it won a lot of people over and people got really hyped about it. And then the second book came and I feel like in general more people were like, can we kind of get things going here? Where's what about the plot? Can we move a little bit? Can something happen?
Mhm.
And it got to a point where there was probably more criticism than he heard for the first book. And that probably had the almost paralyzing effect, I would imagine. I'm conjecturing completely here, but
Right.
I can imagine that that level of success and suddenly being conspicuous, as opposed to working in anonymity, just writing the story you want to write, and
Mhm.
no pressure on you. And suddenly, with all that success comes this huge amount of pressure. And you don't want to be the guy who writes a trilogy where each book is worse than the last,
Right.
and it's just it could be paralyzing, I would think, that we could easily get to somebody. I'm not trying to psychoanalyze the dude, but it's just
Mhm.
something I could imagine happening, that it's almost better to toil away in anonymity and then have maybe success much later before it's all really done. I don't know, but I don't, yeah, it's hard to say. It's probably everybody's a little different. I would imagine in George R. R. Martin's case, the reasons are slightly different. In
Mhm.
terms of, but there's also that he's created this masterful thing, and is there any way to actually gracefully land that now? I don't
Right.
know. I mean, the HBO series sure didn't, right?
Season
So.
eight's my favorite. No, I'm kidding. Um,
Shake
no,
hot take of the
there's
day. Yeah.
like there's always something out there for someone. I think Game of Thrones season 8 is truly for no one. Like there's no one out there that's like, I love Game of
I
Thrones
guarantee
season
you we'll
8.
get a comment. Somebody will say, "I love season 8," but yeah, most of us are. I've said a couple times before. I thought that last episode of season 8 was actually a practical joke. Like they were having one over on us. Like, wait, that's not the real
When
ending.
Samuel Tarly was like, what if we created democracy, and they laughed at him? I'm like, why did they need to throw that in? Like it didn't
Yeah,
fit within the worldview of any of the characters.
it
And
just
for it to
didn't
just be
fit.
laughed at, I just don't get like, was that trying to instill some real world humor into Westeros?
Yeah,
Because
it felt. I wondered if they were trying to pull like a Monty Python, where like at the end of the Holy Grail, it just ends abruptly and absurdly. And I thought, wait, are they pulling a Monty Python on us? Are they having a joke here? No, they were actually serious. It was that bad. It was just that bad. Uh,
yeah, who has a better story than Bran the Broken? About half of the characters in this room do. Like, like genuinely half. like Tyrion himself, the man who said that comment. But I
Yeah.
mean, and then also look at Martin. You talked about it might be better to work in obscurity. I mean, Feast for Crows and Dance of Dragons, they had a longer time, and then Winds of Winter has had this notoriously long window where we've heard very little, and this has been post 2011 HBO launching Game of Thrones. So it's like maybe if we hadn't have gotten this mega massive franchise winning more Emmys than anything else, maybe we would be looking at a finished series. Who knows?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that,
It's hard to say. But with the show, there were a few really good seasons, and then somewhere for me, it became most apparent in season seven, where there were suddenly, miraculously, the characters learned how to teleport all across Westeros, right?
right.
And there was suddenly one character was in the south, and then a moment later they're whoop up in the north, and we didn't even bother to explain how this happened, and it just got sloppy, I felt.
Or
Um,
like, before in the first two seasons, it's like, oh, if Arya was journeying up to, trying to get back to the north, it was like a season long journey
yeah,
versus like Jamie's in Dorne like that. Like,
yeah,
oh, we're in Dorne. And I'm like, wait, what?
yeah. Teleportation is very handy, I guess.
The power of the black screen and then changing to a different scene.
Yeah. But we did get some good seasons from that series. Hopefully, well, I actually, why am I saying hopefully? I don't think we're getting a Song of Ice and Fire's ending ever, but you never know. You never know. They may do a thing like with Robert Jordan did with Brandon Sanderson. I mean, God
Mhm.
bless George R. R. Martin. I hope he lives, 30 more years or something and finishes the series. I'd love that. But I wouldn't bet on it.
Yeah, same. One thing I find super captivating is like the inverse of like the Martins and the Rothfuses that had so much attention out the gate that got a lot of buzz around their books. You look at somebody like Janie Wirtz who like
Yeah.
had to fight her publisher, fight tooth and nail to get this series made, saw the value in her books, and like I'm sure you've had discussions with her where it was like difficult in the middle of the series to continue publishing the books, and I think
Yeah.
that willpower and that drive to get it all out, it comes through in the books, at least for me,
Oh
like
my
the
goodness.
passion there.
Let me tell you, Jenny Wirtz is one person I would never want to be in opposition to. And she is a force of nature, and her her series is just marvelous. It's beautiful. It's vast and complex. And I,
Mhm.
I often wonder about this. Why isn't the series getting the recognition that it deserves? And I think I have some ideas. It just there's so much artistry and craft put into this, and that's not necessarily something that the majority of readers really are equipped to appreciate, I think. I'm not trying to sound elitist or something because I think if you look on Goodreads, for example, and you look at the very highest rated books, I'm talking like thousands and thousands of ratings, and they're like 4.7 or 4.8, which is wow. I mean,
Mhm.
most authors would not be able to would dream of such ratings, right? Almost universally, though, they're written at about a sixth grade level or lower. They're
Right.
not very complex books, in other words,
Mhm.
and which tells you something. Whereas books that are truly complex in terms of both the plot and the depth of thought, but also the sentence structure, and just you introduce a certain level of complexity, you're going to lose a certain percentage of readers, right? They're going to be, readers who are simply trying to zone out and escape, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're being made to work a little bit, you're being challenged a little bit, you're having to look up words and stuff along the way,
Mhm.
you may feel like you're not enjoying it as much, and you may DNF it or give it a lower rating because of that. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of the authors that I admire the most, the ones who just blow me away with their gorgeous prose and the complexity of their thought and how much they provoke me to think, these authors don't have particularly high average ratings on Goodreads.
Mhm.
So you're almost punished in a way, if we look at it that way. Um,
Right.
for introducing complexity into your storytelling.
Mhm.
And that's just a sad reality is that I think that's one reason why um, Wars of Light and Shadow is not as famous as beloved or as well read as it could be. I think. Anyway, I don't know what you think of all that, but it's something I thought about a lot while reading this series. It's like, wow, this is up there with Realm of the Elderlings and Malazan. But even when you talk about great series, popular series within fantasy, Realm of the Elderlings and Malazan are not the biggest sellers by a long shot. Not even close. They can't touch like Stormlight Archive or something like that. Or heck, a lot of Romantasy and stuff like that. They're
Hmm.
much more sales. Or Harry
Yep.
Potter. Far more sales. But
Yep.
we're talking about these are books that are much more, let's say, accessible. The reading level is lower, and there's less complexity in terms of the incorporation of theme and everything else. So
Right.
maybe you're just, I don't know. What do you think about all that? Is that a possible reason?
I do think, it's kind of not even something you could argue because if you go to the bookstore, I mean, every single time I go to Barnes and Nobles, I see a crowd around, Fourth Wing and Sarah J. Maas.
Right,
It's
right.
the hot topic item, and then even when people go into adult fantasy, there's a lot of there's a lot of Sanderson lovers, there's a lot of Abercrombie lovers, which I do love Abercrombie, but
Hmm.
I think when you look at somebody like Hobb or Erickson, there's an even great like definitely Abercrombie has a level of characterization that is denser, but I mean when like Hobb and Erickson to me are on another playing field, and I would put Wirtz
I
on that
agree.
another playing field.
Right.
And my hope is that while yes, a romantasy, more simplistic prose, Sanderson, and I like Sanderson. I got Sanderson on the shelf.
Yep.
Even though they may be more successful out the gate, their releases drum up a lot more hype. I hope at least in my mind, it would make more sense if authors like Wirtz and Hobb and Erickson stood the test of time more. I
Uh-huh.
feel like they should stand out in people's memories more. I feel like 100 years from now, we should still be talking about the ending from The Crippled God and the ending from Assassin's Fate and what happened in War Host of Astmark. Like to me, that will stand out more than most of what I'm seeing fly off the shelves.
I think so. I think so. I mean, you never know. I cannot predict humanity.
Yeah.
If people are even reading at that point, if we haven't been taken over by AI, I believe you're right. I think that these are, for me personally, I can talk for hours and hours about a Jenny Wirtz book or a Robin Hobb book,
Hmm.
and in terms of the theme and the depth and everything else, it's just conducive to a whole lot of analysis and delving and just going to town with that. And I can read, let's say, a Dresden book. I'm doing a Dresden book right now by audiobook, the book 8. It's
Hmm.
fun. I have fun in the moment. Can I have it's the same level of conversation, an in-depth conversation? Yes, there are themes. I'm not saying there aren't, and there's
Hmm.
character development, and there are things you can talk about. But to me, it's not even comparable. It's Dresden is written more for entertainment. It does have themes and stuff, but you can tell that the themes are secondary to the entertainment,
Hmm.
whereas you read Wars of Light and Shadow and the themes are primary.
Yep.
There's deliberate exploration there, deliberate and meticulous and nuanced exploration that's going on there that you can write dissertations about what's going on in there. And I do think that, I mean, from a more like popular culture perspective, you could also write a dissertation on Dresden Files or what have you,
Hmm.
but it's not the same deliberate incorporation of theme. And I think that that's just a difference. I'm not saying one is bad and one is good. It's just that they're serving different purposes. And
Hmm.
in terms of popularity, it's very apparent that if you want to be popular in your own time, then the way to go is more simple.
Right.
That's just human nature. It seems it's been that way for a long time, really. So
Well,
there are a few like I don't know. Shakespeare was probably popular in his own day.
yeah.
Yeah,
Hemingway.
yeah.
Well, then again, his prose style is on the simpler side, but
It's
I think a
actually
lot of what he tackles is deeper.
yeah. Although it's deceptively simple in a way. It's like
Mhm.
Picasso. Okay. when somebody looks at a Picasso and says, "Oh, I could do that. I could put some, lines on on a canvas." Well, Picasso learned a lot of stuff before he started doing, his stuff, right? That we know him for.
Right.
He put in the hard work, and I think it's the same with a writer like Hemingway. Hemingway is going after something very particular with his minimalism. And most people who think they could pull it off probably could not. To imitate Hemingway would be a lot harder than people think, I suspect. But yeah.
Well, I'm gonna put you on the hot seat real quick because I was talking to a friend of ours, Jake. I was talking about because I'm currently reading through Return to Eden,
Uh-oh.
and you know, I tend to prefer like the Janny Wirtz, the Steven Erikson, the very prosaic prose style. But I was telling Jake, I'm like, Philip Chase's Edan trilogy, it has a simpler prose style, but there's something about it. There's something behind the intentionality that
Hmm.
just really. It really gels with me. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here talking to you. Like I've spoken about this with other booktubers and other friends of mine. Even though, and I think Return to Eden kind of the three is a little bit more on the prosaic prose style, but I'm
Uh-huh.
like it's simpler than I prefer. But there's something about the intentionality, and Jake told me that he talked with you about this, and he said it's because you your natural inclination is to write more like Steven Erikson and Wirtz, and that you intentionally, go back. And I think that's why there's so much intentionality with the prose and why it flows well, is because you're not just writing something simple. You have to like translate it in your mind. Am I getting that right? Or
Well, so yeah, I spent a lot of years doing academic writing, which is pretty boring for most people to read. But when you're dealing in certain realms, you need to use the terminology that people who also deal in those realms would recognize.
Mhm,
And so academia, like other realms, has its own set of words and conventions that you obey. And I had to sort of retrain myself a little bit when I started to do creative writing because
mhm,
that's a different audience. I think I'm also influence in terms of my prose by being a medievalist. I do love my archaic stuff, and I have to be careful of that too because there are certain writers that I love, like William Morris, who was very influential on Tolkien. But a lot of what William Morris wrote, because he went so far with the archaic, is almost unreadable for people today.
mhm,
So, like his translation of Beowulf, I wouldn't even recommend because it's almost like you need a translation for the translation. He loves those archaic words and constructions and so on. So now that was another thing that I had to consciously kind of ease back a little bit. I mean, we were talking about George R. R. Martin a moment ago. I think he's an author, a modern author, who does a really great job of giving you a sense that this is a different world, an older world, by
mhm.
introducing a certain amount of archaic words and constructions, but really not making it difficult for the reader at all.
Agreed.
I admire that a lot about George R. R.
Mhm,
Martin's writing. So I was probably trying to go for something similar, where I wanted to feel like an ancient world that's
mhm,
different from our own, with a sense of history. But I don't want to do it so far that it's not accessible to a reader or to, let's say, a majority of readers. I didn't want it to be some esoteric, strange experiment with lots of dead words in it. So that was another thing I had to consciously think about was I need to make this accessible for a modern reader. But there's a certain, particularly with Old English, there's a certain straightforwardness to Old English
mhm,
that I really admire. And I think that's something that probably crept its way into my writing. Like if you read some of the sentences are long and flowy, but then I'll have like a two-word sentence that'll follow that, that kind of thing, right?
mhm,
So I do I'm an experimenter. I do think very hard about my prose,
mhm,
probably more than most writers do. And what would trying to get that balance of what is accessible for a certain amount of readers and what's also artistic and what is beautiful.
mhm.
So in the end, everybody has their own parameters for that, and
Mhm.
you're gonna go too far for some people in one direction, and you're gonna go. I've literally had people say, "This is too complicated. I don't want to read this," and then I've had other people say, "Oh, it's just so simple," So it's just you never know.
Yeah.
But I hope it hits people in the way that it seems to be working for you. That you don't have to work too hard to read the story, and yet you get a sense of beauty and craftsmanship from the prose. That's what I was hoping for. So,
Yeah, and especially what you said about you spend a lot of time looking at your prose. I think a younger me would be like, "Oh, they're not using enough $10 words, it's $5 words," but as I've matured as a reader, I definitely pick up on how much care was taken in the Adan trilogy to convey each scene. Like I know you talk about how you spent years writing it, and I feel like that definitely comes across in the text. But I've also heard While Darkness Gathers has a very different prose style than the main trilogy. I've heard some Le Guin similarities.
yeah, I don't know if the prose style is really very different, but what's different is the amount of description and other things. Because first of all, I had the advantage of having created this world already. So if you've
Right.
read the Adan trilogy, you'll know where you are when you read While Darkness Gathers.
Hmm.
I didn't feel like I needed to create the whole world all over again, and that's an advantage. But I also wanted to challenge myself to make this as economical as I could, and in terms of yeah, there are some really just, I hope, you know, very bare sentences that get the meaning across as efficiently as possible. But at the same time, I do flex a little in terms of, trying to give it a little bit of beauty and that sort of thing. So it's not like, yeah, there it is. Um, it's not like I'm not trying to be Hemingway or something like that. I'm not trying to be oh, what's his name? The road guy, Cormac McCarthy. I'm not trying to be Cormac McCarthy here, right?
Thank God for that. No, I'm
Yeah, I
kidding.
know in your case, yeah. Um, but I am trying to do something which is to deliver a reading experience to someone who's picking this book up that is a little different from the trilogy, where you're kind of steeping in the trilogy. It really takes its time, and there's a lot more, let's say, extended exploration going on, both of just the landscape, but also the inner thoughts of the characters, and just the maybe a bit of philosophy. I tried to do it all much more efficiently in While Darkness Gathers, much more streamlined, much more
Mhm.
stripped back, which sometimes stripped back can really hit people in a way that if you're doing it right, if you really get it right, the stripped back can really can hit hard. And we mentioned Janie Wirtz a few times. She's read While Darkness Gathers, and she thinks, I hope I can speak for her in this, but she basically told me that she feels like this is the best writing I've done. And she read the trilogy and she's read While Darkness Gathers. So to hear that from someone like her, as accomplished as she is pretty amazing. But yeah, I was very deliberate in what I was trying to accomplish in While Darkness Gathers. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to get to it.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think about that with your own writing, like the prose? Are you tweaking things and consciously thinking about how it's going to affect, influence the reader's experience and all of that?
I think in rough drafting, I had a lot of like me trying to I guess because I'm younger, because I'm a debut author, I felt like I had something to prove. So I was using a lot of these bigger words that did
Ah,
not fit the flow of the narrative at
yeah.
all. And coming back after completing the story, I'm reading through it and I'm like, this is so nonsensical. So I
Uh-huh.
have to temper that a little bit. And there were quite a few times where I used words incorrectly.
Uh-huh.
And it was just me, inexperience trying to be like, I have to show them that I'm intelligent. And then I'm like, okay, but you're really, really being counterintuitive here with the language you're using.
Yeah.
I try to be intentional with it. It makes the editing process, for me, I edit extremely slowly. Like there will
Uh-huh.
be times where I
Good.
agonize over like 3 paragraphs and I'm just like,
Good.
like,
Do you
And
enjoy editing? Because I love it. It's my favorite part of the process, but some people hate it. How do you feel about it?
I think I prefer it over the actual drafting, to
Uh-huh.
be honest with you, because it feels like puzzle solving in a way. It
Yeah.
feels like, and, you can take it in chunks. And then for me, so I plan out pretty aggressively. Like I'm not so much like a let it come through. I like, okay, and on chapter 12 is where we get the reveal of this. Chapter 14 is where we do this. And then obviously there are some things in the process where that outline has to be tweaked. But for the most part, I like to stick to my outline. But even with the outline, there's still this looming anxiety whenever I'm drafting of like, can I tie this all together? Is
Uh,
it going to work out in the end? And me having the ending out, like I have the whole draft done. Now I'm just making it pretty. That to me takes away a lot of the anxiety.
yeah, yeah, just getting it out. Having the story in a A form, in a rough form,
Hmm.
finished is a big deal. Yeah. And then spending years, if you're a psycho like me, tweaking it. And also, what really helped me tremendously, I've had really valuable feedback from a couple people. One was the agent I worked with for years, really helped me
Hmm.
a lot. And the other was AP Canavan, a Critical Dragon, who was my developmental editor. And that was a really great process of just one more time going through these books and making them even better. And made some, because of his suggestions, I made some significant changes here and there to the point where there's even a character that I had originally killed off at the end of the first book
Hmm.
who survives and is an important character in the second and the third book, which I won't say here, but I can tell you off camera. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, there's that's a significant change.
Yeah, I
That
think you dedicated While Darkness Gathers to him. So his feedback seems like it was very,
Yeah,
very instrumental in getting the Adan trilogy out. And
for sure. Yeah, he was not my developmental editor for While Darkness Gathers, which made it easier to dedicate it to him. So that was my punishment for AP. I was dedicating a book to him. So, but no, it was really a wonderful process. I learned a lot, and I hope that you get someone like that, and an editor, developmental editor. You can do both. Somebody who does the little things, but with AP, he just does developmental editing. He's not a
Mhm.
copy editor. He's a developmental editor. He doesn't talk about commas and such, but ideas, big ideas, like structural things, he
Mhm.
does. That's where he's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But yeah, are you working with an editor already, or do you have beta readers, or what's your process going to be for that?
So right now, even though I've been putting like a chapter out every month, I'm actually like editing like I'm in like the chapter 20 of like my edits, but I still go over, I look it through a bunch before I put it on my channel. That's just something fun to do. It keeps me honest. It keeps me putting a
Yeah.
chapter out. But once I get like all the chapters edited to a point where I am comfortable sharing them, that's when I'm going to start looking for that, I believe.
Okay.
Um, just because right now I feel like if I were to share it with anyone, they're going to be catching a lot of things that I would have caught.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like, because I've even things that have had two or three passes, I go read them over, read them out loud, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, I think at
Know
one
that
point
feeling. I know
I
that.
had like her wound. This is cringily bad, but there was something like wouldn't cease its incessant bleeding, and I'm like, would not cease its unceasing bleeding. I was like, oh my goodness. And or I had a line where it was like emphatically pointing for emphasis, and I was like, no, like yeah, emphatically pointing for emphasis. So there are the things like that
I
that
mean, if your word ends with a ly, it's probably a good idea to ask yourself, do I need this adverb? Hmm. Does
right.
erasing this adverb do anything to the meaning of the sentence? And if the answer is no, then you probably could delete the adverb. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then there's a lot of things within just like the story where like somebody's like explaining their backstory, and I think that was just part of me like drafting. Like I needed to figure out what was in this person's headspace.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I'm like, why would this person just be unloading this on strangers? Like, what am I doing here?
Right.
So
And if it's not essential to the story, Don't need it. Yeah.
Right.
That's an interesting thing. I had to learn that too, because I did a lot of world building, which I was excited to share with the world in my book. And then you realize, wait, this is just getting in the way of the story. That was my
Mhm.
problem with Dandelion Dynasty, with all the engineering stuff. It's like, hey, Ken Liu, it's really cool that you actually figured out how to make all this stuff work. But it's for me anyway, it felt like it was in the way of the story. And
Right.
do I need to go off on all these pseudo historical tangents in my book? Because it's interrupting the main story here. Is it worth it? And that's the thing you have to ask yourself. Now, it's fine to have it in your head as the author. You fleshed out this world and you're inhabiting it. That it gives the story life. It breathes the story life into the story. But it's like
Mhm.
when they made the films Lord of the Rings, right? They had stuff on the set that we viewers never have seen. And it didn't matter because it helped the actors to be in character because they felt like they were in Middle Earth, right? But if are they going to go around with the camera and show us every little detail, all the little carvings and all the the things that aren't? No, because they need to tell the story, right?
Right.
So similar thing, I think, for us. We need to ask ourselves, does this have anything to do with putting the story forward?
Mhm.
Or am I off on a thing just because I think it's really cool and I want people to know I put in all that work? You know what I mean?
Are there, because there are quite a few points in the Adan trilogy where you have like like, I don't want to say lore drops, but it feels very reminiscent of Tolkien to where you're like,
Sure.
like when Aragorn sang Beren and Luthien, there's a few of those within the
Yeah.
Adan trilogy that I think came across really strong. Were there any that you wrote that maybe didn't make the final draft?
Oh, sure. Yeah. And even I would argue with Baron and Luthien, it's there not just as a lore drop, it's also
Mhm.
so poignantly relevant to Aragorn's own situation.
Right.
And for me, that was also a necessary thing. Like, okay, I'm gonna have this Aben Bard dude sing a song, but is it thematically relevant? So
Hmm.
for example, if you look at one of the songs that Aben sings in The Prophet of Adan, it's the story of how the northern gods were essentially created and they fought against this primordial dragon that had emerged from the world tree, right? So I stole a lot from Norse mythology there, obviously. And they destroy that dragon because it's going to eat up everything in its greed. They have to fight that dragon, and they do so using a certain method that kind of comes up later in the same story with a certain character that I think you know,
Hmm.
right? A character by the name of Orvindil. So I'm in other words, for me, I was able to say to myself, yes, this is thematically relevant. It's also world building, but it's a bit of foreshadowing for what's going to happen later in this book. So I felt
Hmm.
like, okay, there's enough connections there to keep that there. And it's not just some for the sake of showing how prettily I can write poetry, right? It's not there just for that. But I do like my Old English poetry. I may be one of like three people, but I do love that stuff in there. So,
I mean,
um,
one video on your channel that I watched in its entirety many, many times is when you did the introduction of the Malazan Book of the Fallen. You did an iteration of that in Old
in Old
English,
English
and
with Steven Erikson. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that was a treat.
That is probably, and it's hard to say this, but that might be my favorite video I've ever made. Actually,
To
that
have,
might
and
have.
Erickson is your favorite author, correct?
He is. He is. So that has something to do with it. But it was just a convergence, and I'm using that word on purpose. That was a
Hmm.
convergence of wonderful things for me in making that video. But yeah, I translated the epigraph to the entire series, that poem that it starts out the entire series. He actually asked me to do that, to translate it into Old English, and I very happily did that. It turns out it's a lot harder to translate modern English into Old English than it is for me to translate Old English into modern English. But it was a fun exercise, and it helped me to understand a lot of things as well about that. But yeah, understanding that Erickson didn't just write these poems on a whim. They're so thematically relevant. They can enrich. In other words, if this lore matter can enrich a reader's experience of the story, and it's thematically relevant, then it belongs, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Then it has a place. It can add value to the story, right? It's
Mhm.
not just a tangent that interrupts the story. It actually enriches it in some way. So
Mhm.
who knows? That's my enriching thing is somebody else's irrelevant tangent, I suppose. But for me, you can only do what you think works, right? So
Mhm.
I don't know
Agreed.
how you experienced all those poems in the Adan trilogy so far, but that's how I feel about it.
I'm really enjoying it. I think I'll probably finish book three here shortly, but I was talking earlier about there was that formative time where Gentlemen Bastards, Realm of the Elderlings, Malazan. Right now, my three that have really been um and these are the three series for the first in a while that have like actually made me stop and like look at life and my the world and my place within it. And I will say we talked about Jim Butcher and Dresden Files. I think those are important because if you have nothing but like life altering reads, you're gonna kind of become numb to these revelations. So I think you
Yeah,
need
yeah.
in between the deeper reads, you need the Sandersons, you need the Butchers. But right now, my main three are Wars of Light and Shadow by Janny Wirtz.
Brilliant.
This one, massive. Everyone's talking about it. Saga of the Sun Eater by Christopher Rocchio,
Uh-huh.
and then Your Own Trilogy. These are my top three within the current time. But like looking back the past 2 years that I've been reading, these are three that have really resonated with me. I think I'm probably leaving one off. I think Sword of Kaigen hit me pretty hard for emotional
Uh-huh.
reasons,
Uh-huh. Yeah. I'm gonna read
but
that very soon, actually, myself. Yeah.
I hope you enjoy it. It's got some flaws, but man, is it an amazing book.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, that's an honor to be in that company. I haven't actually started Sun Eater yet, but I will be doing so late this year. I'm missing the big. You'll be ready for it's the seventh book, right? The final book in the series. It's coming out in November.
Correct. I have two more,
Okay.
but I'm reading his short stories in between on my Kindle. They're not audiobooked. I that's one of the series that I mainly do audio just because I really love Samuel Rukin's performance.
Oh, cool. Okay. Huh. I hadn't heard much about that audiobook wise. So yeah. Hmm.
I've kind of
Oh,
been allocating, well, my physical reading time, I've been like the Adan trilogy and Wars of Light and Shadow have kind of been the priorities for physical reading because they don't have those audiobooks.
yeah.
Well, I mean, yes, the Adan trilogy has audiobooks, just not
It's
to the book
coming.
I'm on.
Yeah. Well, so Alan's done the first one. It's out there, and Prophet is going to be out anytime now. Really, I mean, it's just a matter of like literally any second now. Alan might say, "Hey, I have the files. Let's upload them," and then we'll do that. But then Audible will take however long it takes. Last time it took 10 days, I think, for them to say, "Yep, okay, you're good." So
Hmm.
that's all we're waiting on, essentially for profit. And then he is already several hundred pages. He's probably about where you are in Return to Adan right now in his narrating.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Sam from I Samwise, he told me that the narration that Alan does, and he's a big fan of Alan's channel, but he said the narration Alan does is so good that he doesn't want to read ahead, that he is
yeah.
waiting for the audiobooks. And I've heard quite a few people say that actually,
I
that
respect that. Yeah, yeah.
they're that attached to his narration of it. So,
He's done a tremendous job, and I really hope that it'll turn into a thing for him. Like a not just more writers will hear about his the quality of his narration and hire him, but it would be really cool if he could do it for a living, because he's
mhm.
that talented. So I've listened to Andy Serkis. I've listened to Stephen Pacey. I'm listening to James Marsters right now. So these are some of the very greatest audiobook narrators that people talk about. And I will be listening to Jeff, what's his name, who does
Jeff
the
Hayes.
Hayes. I'll be listening to Jeff Hayes soon. So I'll add him to the list soon. I feel like Alan is up there. I feel like
Oh,
he
okay.
could be in that conversation. Maybe, okay, so The Way of Adan was his very first attempt. I would love for people to compare that to the very first audiobook that any of these others have done.
Mhm.
I feel like Alan could be in that mix. Like he's that good. People should check him out. And if you're an author looking for a great audiobook narrator, snap him up before he gets really expensive. Because he could blow up and be famous. That's how good he is, in my opinion. So,
I was talking to Sam. We were doing hypotheticals, and it was like if you had your own book and you had an audiobook narrator, who would it be? And if you could have your pick, and of the three names he listed, I forgot what the other two were, but Alan Walker was one of his main three, and I was like, oh dang, because I've only read physically with the Adan trilogy. Moira Quirk is a really good one. She's a really good narrator as well. Like in
yeah.
my perfect dream fantasy, like if I ever like wrote a book that did really well, like if Requiem did well, my dream is that Moira Quirk would do it because I think her
Oh,
narration is
cool.
brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. Good that you have that in mind. And save your pennies because if she's famous already, it's not going to be cheap.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's the thing with the audiobook narration. That for me anyway, so far, that's the hardest part of this whole thing to earn your money back on is the audiobook. 'Cause it's just so, I mean, it's very time as you've experienced.
Mhm.
It's so time consuming. And if you're, as the author, having to pay your narrator $200 per finished hour, that gets expensive really fast, right?
Mhm.
And that's not even that's still low end, really. I mean, if it can go up to 400 per finished hour or more even for the really famous ones. So
Mhm.
it's incredibly expensive, but for a reason because it's so time consuming.
Right.
And then there's, of course, Amazon comes along and says, "Hey, your book is eligible for AI narration." And I'm like, "No,
No.
no, no, and no. I would much rather pay Alan Walker to do the narration and have an actual human do it for me. That's just me, though. I'm gonna
Humanity, it never goes out of
I'm gonna
style.
be stubborn about that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you. No AI for me. I won't. I don't use AI art. I don't use AI in any process, any part of my writing, and I certainly won't use AI for my audiobook narration. So, but there's me. I'm
I
not.
wonder the return on investment. I think probably it's because the trilogy isn't done yet. So hopefully when Return to Edan is out, because some people might be like, oh, well, if I
I'll
really love
wait
the
until.
narrator,
Yeah.
I'll have to wait a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm hoping that's the case. But yeah,
mhm,
I've actually just I've broken even for the first
mhm,
one, and so that's all I can ask really. And that's actually a very fortunate position to be in. You know, most indie authors lose money. That's just the
right.
reality. But so I feel very fortunate in that. But it would be wonderful if people would discover Alan's just tremendous narration, and I hope he can make a career of it. It would make me so happy to see that happen.
Well,
So
when I have a reread, that'll definitely be the preferred. I've heard so many people talk about it. And I think on a reread of the Adan trilogy, I hope you'll forgive me to say this, but I really think that those books almost need to be read closely together. Like there's
uh,
enough information in books 2 and 3 to catch you up, but I think some of the emotional beats, like you released them, I believe, like 3 months apart, right?
I did, yeah.
I do think that that's one of those series that you shouldn't take an incredibly long time between entries. That's my own personal reading experience. I think it is more conducive to read them closer together.
Well, I will say that there are things you're about to get to in Return to Adan, particularly at the end, that will recontextualize stuff that you read in well, as far back as the very beginning of The Way of Adan.
Mhm.
Kind of full circle stuff in a way. But yeah, it will change some of your ideas about what was actually happening even in the early parts of the trilogy. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy if anyone reads it at all. To be honest. And it's great. It's great to have people reading the books and especially if they respond positively to them. So yeah, you'll find out. You will find out how fulfilling it is. And there'll be people who bounce off of it, and that's fine. You know, nobody's going to write a story that everybody is universally going to love. That's just the reality. But you'll get to a point in your writing where you'll find people who love what you do
Mhm.
and cherish that because that is just the best, to have that dialogue with a reader and to have that vision that you've been working on and tweaking and just doing your best to get onto into words. When something like that vision happens in another person's brain as they're reading your book and they respond to it and say, "Wow, this really blew me away," or "This really made me cry," or "This got me really thinking about this part of my life," that's the
Mhm.
best. That's the best. Yeah, making connections with people like that. Yeah. So you'll
Agreed.
you'll experience that. I'm looking forward to that for you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Did we get to all your formative stuff though? I feel like we totally interrupted your reading journey. Was there anything else you wanted to mention in that context before we move on?
Um, Let me think. Uh, I mean, Janny Words has been very formative in the past year or so. Sun Eater, Adan trilogy. I think Sun Eater. Quick comment on Sun Eater. I think there has been some little echo chamber stuff on BookTube where they talk about like Rockio's prose quality or if his work is derivative. And I think that those opinions can be very much regurgitated back at each other to where it becomes this common thing said. I really think you're going to love Sun Eater. I think it is a very cerebral and very thoughtful work. And
And
I think some
entertaining
of,
at the same time, I think, right?
huh?
And entertaining at the same time.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But I think some people kind of attribute a more like action book quality to those books that I don't really think is there. Like
Okay. Okay.
I think it's more of it's more dialogue and philosophy heavy than it is laser
Okay.
sword heavy.
Okay.
I'll keep it at that.
Okay.
Um,
I don't mind laser swords, but okay.
same. But and
Yeah.
then this one I wanted to speak on because I don't think anybody on BookTube has read it, but it's a comic book. Um,
I love comic books.
Mr. Miracle by Tom King. It's DC Comics. This is like a super nice like hardcover edition.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
it's it's about this hero created by Jack Kirby who did like the Fantastic Four and stuff, and
Yep.
it was during the Silver Age of comics, and it was very pulpy and fun and colorful. And Tom King, who was a he was basically in the CIA during the Iraq War, and he was there during the fall of Baghdad. He came back from that with a lot of PTSD. He
Uh-huh.
started writing comics, and in the comic Mr. Miracle, the very first it's a 12 issue miniseries. It's not long, but in the
Huh.
first panel, the main character of Scott Free, who's supposed to be the world's greatest escape artist, and it was this very
Got
pulpy Silver
free.
Age character, he has essentially attempted to take his own life.
Oh my.
And
Okay.
throughout the comic, you see him as he, you know, makes this journey to try. The world's greatest escape artist is trying to escape his own depression.
Oh wow. Huh.
And man, it was at 19, that was one of those stories that just really stuck with me. And I loved how it showed that escaping depression is not this like, straight bar graph ascending like, oh, I got better. Like it's, there's a lot of ups and downs, and
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
it reminded me a lot of I do think I like Mr. Miracle a little bit more just because of when I read it and how formative it was, but it reminded me of Dreams of the Dying by Nicholas Litzau, how it
Oh yes.
examines
I do love that book.
melancholia.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a very deliberate and thorough exploration of depression. Yeah. And yeah, that's a very thoughtful book and
I
well
love
written.
that book.
Yeah. He has a sequel coming out, I think.
Mhm.
Or has it come out even? I'm not sure.
I
But I,
think it got split into two volumes and they're supposed to be coming out next year.
oh, okay. Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah. I had a conversation with him actually on my channel.
Mhm.
Yeah. Great
Yeah,
guy.
I caught the chat. I really loved it. I thought that
Oh,
was a
cool.
really good interview. He doesn't have a lot of interviews out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a shame. Yeah. Patrick Leo has been championing him. He's the one I got actually the recommendation from myself. But you don't hear a lot of other people besides Patrick and me. Do I know anyone else who's read Dreams of the Dying even? I'm sure I'm missing someone here, but yeah.
It's a hard pitch when I tell people, I'm like, well, it kind of spun out of this mod of a video game, and they're like,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
And I'm like, no, 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 it's good. I swear. Like,
Yep,
it's
yep.
really good.
You might want to end with that part.
Right. That I learned that that's
Yeah.
I've long been terrible at my introductions. Like my sister, I'm like, okay, so Malazan, it's kind of hard to understand, and there's like 1,000 POVs, but it's really good. And she's like, that is
Yeah.
a terrible way to sell someone.
And it's also another one where I feel like it's not really helpful to tell people from the beginning. It emerged from a role-playing game, GURPS, that these two guys played together. Uh,
Hmm.
then they get the wrong impression because the books are not a retelling of their campaigns. That's not what the books are.
Yeah.
Think people have a mistaken impression that somehow the very series they've written were simply campaigned and that no. Yes, a
Yeah.
lot of the characters and some elements of the books, yes, but they've written these books as books, right? And these are not.
It's it's a very far cry from I think you're probably gonna be, if you haven't read it already, you'll be rereading it for the Spiffbo championship thing. But the Eden Saga by Justin Lee Anderson, great books, but they're, you can tell that it's, kind of inspired by a D&D game, whereas
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Malazan does not have that quality to
Doesn't have
it.
that feel. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like a party off to accomplish an objective. In
Right.
my mind, I always thought that the events we're seeing in like Paths to Ascendancy, like the all the stuff with Kellanved and Dancer when they were younger, felt more campaigned than the main narrative of the Books of the Fallen.
I could see that. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure they developed a lot of that backstory stuff when they were campaigning. Now, on the other hand, there are elements of their writing that did come from, I think, the rapport that they developed between themselves as they were doing these. Like Malazan's famous for its duos. There's
Mhm.
a reason for that, right? That they were campaigning and riffing off of each other. And I think you can see it in the relationships in the duos, particularly in Malazan, which it's famous for. Think of all the duos in Malazan that we love, you know.
Mhm.
And
I've
then
seen Reddit threads of like trying to psychoanalyze which one is Erickson and which one is Esselmont.
who
Sorry, I
played who?
interrupted you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep, yeah, it's fun. And I think there's a shared humor there too that you see in the books, but almost certainly had developed to some degree at least with the two of them. I'm imagining this, but it feels like there's a shared humor there, that they're referencing things that they did together at times when they're writing these books, in a fun way. So.
Mhm.
But yeah, yeah. So, and you've read everything Malazan, correct? Like all the published stuff.
Yes, I until David from Four Corners of the Pages video, I didn't realize there was a short story called Goats of Glory, and I'm still
Uh-huh.
not sure how to get my hands on it. And I think there's one Corbel Brooch and Beauchelain novella that's not in the bind ups.
Right, right. That's not actually
After,
published yet. Yeah,
yep,
yeah,
yeah, I think the last one I read was Fiends of Nightmaria, and it was
yeah.
like that Cracked Pot Trail bind up. But yeah, I've read all that. Carcanis, which Carcanis really gives Book of the Fallen a run for its money. I just really love seeing I one thing that's so, I don't know why I love it so much. I love that the Azathanai that we see in Carcanis are not the Azathanai you think are the Elder Gods in Book of the Fallen.
So different. Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that. And
yeah.
I really love his style on Carcanis. I think it works extremely well.
Uh-huh.
Um,
I think if you're somebody who enjoys the later books, especially in the Malazan Book of the Fallen, that there's a good chance you're going to enjoy Carcanus.
mhm,
I think you could almost see the evolution, because everybody evolves as a writer, but there's a slightly more philosophical bent, I think, to the later books, and he really kind of goes with that in Carcanus.
mhm.
But yeah, I love them too. I need to do a Carcanus reread myself, especially when that I'm gonna probably do it when we're starting to hear rumblings about the third book coming out, which
The
hopefully.
Walk in Shadow.
Yeah, Walk in Shadow next year. But this year we are getting treated to the second book in the Witness series, at
Mhm.
least. So, No Life Forsaken. So we can look forward to that. Is that going to be a day one read for you?
Absolutely. Is that okay? So one of my, this is going to be slight spoilers, thoughts real quick. One of my pet peeves about Book of the Fallen was one of the drop plot threads was Fellison the Younger, which I don't
Uh-huh.
think was a drop. I think he saw it through to where he wanted to delve at that point in the story. But I'm because on the cover, I believe it's Fellison the Younger, correct?
I don't know. Is it? That's
I think it
interesting.
is.
Yeah, okay. I haven't heard. I haven't actually looked into it. I've seen that cover, but that makes sense.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that was conjecture that I ran with, kind of like I did with Grub. I don't know. I have to look into it.
You might
I
be
don't know.
right.
Now
I
that you
mean,
question, I'm like, was it Fellas in the? But I was, with it taking place in seven cities,
uh-huh.
I kind of assumed it was going to be, and then I'm like, that is one plot thread that was kind of left at the end of I think Bone Hunters is when that plot thread got kind of.
Yeah. Was it Bone Hunters? Okay. Maybe, maybe. I'm not going to question it right now. But yeah. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I don't know what he's doing in No Life Forsaken. The one thing I'm pretty sure of is that we're not going to see uh, Mr. Witness. We're not going to see Karsa in it probably again, right?
Yeah,
I think he
I
talked
agree.
about this, so I'm not. This is nothing. I'm not. I think everyone was thinking. People were even calling it the Karsa trilogy. For a while, but actually, he's does not appear in The God Is Not Willing. Pretty much. Although the consequences of his actions play a major role, of course. And
Right.
that could also be the case in No Life Forsaken, obviously, if it's in Seven Cities, where he obviously,
And especially with a character like Fellison the Younger, who he
yeah,
had a very strong relationship with.
right.
Um, I
So,
I loved The God Is Not Willing. In fact, I liked
same.
Karsa's progeny. I liked him as the character more than Karsa himself.
Oh,
Uh,
much more likable. Yeah.
yeah, he resonated with me way more. To honestly, what is it? Rant or runt? Rant?
I think it's Rant. Yeah.
Rant? Arguably, this is after only one book, but arguably one of my favorite Erickson characters, full stop. I thought he was brilliant and so accurate to children that have lived through that kind of experience and the way they view the world. I specifically remember a part where, he was in that boat and he's like, I want to be smaller. I want to be smaller. He wanted to take up less space. And I
Yeah.
remember reading that and I had to close the book because it was just it was so powerful and it rang so true.
Yep. I also think that Erickson's characterization of the Malazan troops and the soldier humor and the quirkiness of their personalities reaches new heights in The God Is Not Willing. I just some of the new characters in there, like Stillwater,
Oh,
absolutely,
Stillwater.
absolutely just bonkers in the best way.
She's Kellen Vet Jr.
Yeah.
She's Kellen Vet Jr. is what she is.
Yeah, some really bonkers characters in there, but still with that spirit of camaraderie and connection and dare I say compassion. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So yeah, good stuff. So we have that to look forward to, and you're going to be a day one reader like me. We're gonna
Mhm.
have to. I know a bunch of people that like Alan wants to talk about it, and there's gonna be hopefully a bunch of us who are gonna get in discussion. So maybe we can get into a discussion when
Oh,
that
that would be
comes out.
wonderful. That would
Yeah,
be awesome.
yeah, cool.
Do you have
Well,
it? Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. You finish your
I was
thought.
gonna say, do you have any other books on the horizon that you're excited for aside from?
I do. Yeah. Well, right now I'm finishing up the second book in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, which is a reread for me, the Tad Williams series, and that's the Stone of Farewell. I'm really enjoying that experience a lot. I don't know if you've read Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn yet, but
I have not. I've heard from many people that they think I would really love it.
okay.
I've heard it's
Yeah.
similar to Hobb in some ways.
So Tad Williams was a big influence on Hobb and on George R. R. Martin, actually. So yeah, just for that, probably worth checking out. But in and of itself, I think it's a gorgeous story, and I love where I am right now at the tail end of Stone of Farewell.
Have you read The Lost King of Austin Ard Quartet?
No, no. So my plan is to continue with that second series after I have finished the original trilogy. Um,
Okay.
so that's definitely on the horizon. I got some GGK reading to do. I've only read Tigana, and I want to. It was so long ago that I actually want to start off by rereading that, and then I'm going to read more GGK. So that's definitely a priority for me. I'm going to be reading Gormenghast, and
Mm.
talking about that one um, with Jay from the what's his channel's name? The uh,
Contemplative reader?
Contemplative Reader. Thank you. Yeah. So
Mhm.
Jay, I'll be talking with him
Great
about that
channel.
one. I love Jay. I think he does a really great job of reflecting on his reading in a way
Hmm.
that just suits me to a T. I love the way he talks about books. So I'm looking forward to having discussions with him. So yeah, I have a few things. I'm reading the SPFBO stuff for the Champions League. So
Hmm.
Sword Kaigen is up next, and I'm probably missing some. Oh, I got to continue in the Wars of Light and Shadow. I've read the first 7 books, and really, really excited to continue. We've been holding off on that as we've been waiting for AP. So Joanna, AP, and I have been a group discussing that, and we're waiting for AP to finish book 7 so we can resume our series there. I'm really excited. And that's one I'm eager to have under my belt, is the
Same.
entirety. So I'm on book 8, and yeah, uh, it's a truth though too with these series that you really love that you almost hate to finish them too. It's a bittersweet thing, isn't it? Because then you realize, well, I'm never gonna be able to read that for the first time again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess because I'm not even at the halfway point with Janny yet, that I'm just, like, oh, like my main goal is to finish Alliance of Light this year.
Uh-huh.
It's like her 5 book arc 3. So I'm gonna try to full steam ahead through that because yeah, it's just one of those massive epics that I just want to have under my belt. I remember Malazan, I read like Midnight Tides through Crippled God, like straight because I was that hooked. And I feel myself being drawn into Words of Light and Shadow in a similar way at the
Yeah.
moment. So
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, lots of exciting things ahead. But yeah, but thank you. I just really want to express my appreciation for you being a really positive presence here in our community. I'm really very grateful to know you, Shay. I love watching you talk about books, and you do good things there. You have a very positive influence on people, and you should know that. So thank you
thank
for
you.
being my guest, and I'm looking forward to our future discussions as well.
Same here, same here. Being asked to be on Dear Doctor Fantasy is like at the absolute top of the bucket list of achievements within my booktube journey. Like over, everybody talks about the 1,000 subscriber thing. Like this to me was the bigger. Like the second I got that invite, I was like, yes. Like I was I have not stopped talking to my sister or my girlfriend about I'm gonna be on Dear Doctor Fantasy tomorrow. And they're like, we know, and I'm like, no, no, we're recording it tomorrow. So it was a big deal for me. Thank you so
Oh,
much for inviting me on.
it's been an honor and a pleasure, and I hope that your girlfriend and your sister will enjoy watching our conversation, and everyone else as well. And of course, please check out Shay's channel, Zachary Shaye. There will be a link in the description. Head on over there and subscribe to this wonderful guy. I will tell you one thing, I haven't mentioned it yet. I love watching your videos because you do the best job of establishing this very chill, very inviting, very relaxing atmosphere right from the get-go. And you never waver from that in a way that I find very pleasant. Like people, you want a nice, supportive, and just welcoming environment where someone's talking about books. Check out Zachary Shea. It's a really nice thing you do with your videos. I feel like I'm being welcomed into somebody's home and having tea with someone when in the best way. It's like the beginning of a Robin Hobb book or something. What you
Yeah. That's definitely the goal is to be like, hey, it's okay. You can sit down, enjoy the journey. At least that's the intentionality with a
Yeah.
lot of the videos.
It comes through. So, yeah, beautiful. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And until next time.